indeed, evaluation is a mirror that reflects back to our speakers, that helps them to grasp how they've delivered their speech, how the message has been received. It is indeed a mirror, and thank you very much for that start to this meeting, Christian. I said to you a few moments ago that I'm delighted that this is a workshop where you have two facilitators. I would like to introduce to you now a lady who I first got to know at Excalibur Speakers, the in-person club, some years ago now. And I have seen her as a president of a club. I've seen her deliver exceptional evaluations, truly exceptional. She seems to have the art of just reaching in to the speaker's message and drawing out the comments that are going to help them to grow and expand as speakers. I'm delighted that she's with us and that she has become also a sponsor of this club, our new club, Excalibur Online Global Speakers. I'm so pleased that she's taken up that role, that she's agreed to come and share with us this evening. What's going to happen now is that both myself and my co-facilitator, we are each going to give you a golden nugget about evaluation. So as Christian was saying, this is the time to have a pen, paper, or a second device where you're going to start to make some notes. But I am delighted to welcome onto this stage none other than past District 71 evaluation champion, distinguished Toastmaster, and indeed she is taking the role this year for District 91 of the club lead. She is leading the growth and development of our clubs. We want to welcome onto this stage with reaction buttons, with rounds of applause, Lynne Cantor. Lynne Gayer.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, just move that. Okay, I will come back to that in a minute, but it's ready when I kick off. Okay, good evening, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. And it's wonderful to be here because this is the time of year when it's competition time. It's competition season. It's competition for the international speech. And importantly, it's competition time for the evaluations. And when you want to evaluate like a champion, one of the things, and Andrew said it, is to get into the speaker's head. So I want to remind you what the speakers will be judged on at the International Speech Contest, because that, as an evaluator, you can actually help your speakers be better speakers. So even if you're not going in for any competition, you can help the champions in your club, in your area, in your division, to hone their skills by giving them feedback relative to what the judges are going to be looking for. So an open question, who can tell me what the 3 key criteria are for an international speech? Would anybody like to shout out?
Message.
The message, that's part of it. Anything else?
Content.
Content, yes, content. Okay, I'm going to move on because I'm very conscious of time. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to try and share my screen. There we go. Look at that. Content. And content is so key. So I'm glad whoever said that. It's 50% of the speaker's score. And so many people focus on delivery and not content. And if you look at it, content is split into 3 things: the development, the effectiveness, and the value. And that is further broken down, 15%, 10%, and the value is 25%. And the value is about the meaningfulness, the originality, the ideas, and the logic. Partly subjective, I get that, but that is where 25% of that mark comes into play. The effectiveness, 10%. What's the purpose of the speech? I think someone mentioned that. Is it to persuade, inform, entertain? Is it relevant? And also the supporting structure. A lot of people look at content structure and delivery, but actually structure is part of content. Does it have an opening, a body, and a conclusion? Does it have smooth transitions? Are there quotes, facts, figures, descriptions, and a tinkling of humor? We all love a little bit of humor. So that is the content, and it is 50%. And I emphasize that because that's what I want you to focus on, as well as delivery. Now, delivery is 30% of the speaker's mark. And it's broken down equally, 10% to physical, voice, and manner. So it's what you see, what you hear, and how it makes you feel. And I don't have to go through them. You can read it on the screen. But don't just focus on delivery. Please do focus on content and language. Language is actually 20% of the mark. How appropriate is the speech purpose? How appropriate is the speech to the audience that you're speaking to? Is it clearly understandable? And what about the choice of words and the lack of jargon? And is it correct grammar and pronunciation, which I put down twice? But they're the things that I want you to think about. Feel free to take some screenshots if you haven't already. But by looking at content, delivery, and language, you've actually got something to work with when you actually evaluate a speech. So I'm now going to ask Pema, our timer. We're going to time 1 minute for a table topic, and then we're going to break down content, delivery, and language. So I do want a volunteer who would like to do a table topic. Don't all shout at once. Who would like to do one? Agnes put her hand up. Agnes, thank you so much. Okay, Agnes, please take yourself off. And when Agnes starts, Agnes will have 1 minute to do a table topic. So Agnes, your question today, what is the best thing that's happened to you today? With the best thing that's happened to you today, please welcome Agnes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 a.m. here where I am. I haven't done much today because it's 6 a.m. and I'm not somebody to stay up all night. So what's the best thing that's happened in the hour that I've been up? Well, I think the best thing is the reason I got up at 5 a.m. today and prepared to be awake enough to come here, and that is this meeting. I'm very excited to meet everybody that's here from many different parts of the world. That's fantastic. I'm very excited to hear about evaluation because that's a big interest of mine, as it is for most of us who are members of Toastmasters. So the best thing that's happened to me today has been the anticipation of coming here, getting ready, getting my morning shower and putting some proper clothes on so I can look decent, and waiting for the sun to rise, which it hasn't yet done. So the best thing that's happened today has been anticipation for this meeting. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Agnes. Thank you very much. Give Agnes a round of applause in that 1 minute. So now this is an open feedback. And I want you to start thinking about, first of all, what commendation would you give Agnes for content? What commendation would you give Agnes for content? I have a couple of hands. Oh, I've only got one hand. All the hands have gone down. Right. This is an interactive session, guys. So I need some hands up. Who would like to give a commendation? Thank you, Beverly. On content.
On content, she set it up by pointing out that she's only been up for 1 hour, which gives us all the idea, wow, this is wonderful. What could she have done in 1 hour? For some of us, getting up is a really exciting part of the day, but excellent setup.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we actually knew where we stood in relation to the speech. I'm going to have to say this. Billy, is it Billy?
Yes, it is, Billy.
Billy, okay. So my question to you is, what recommendation would you give to Agnes on content? What recommendation would you give Agnes on content?
Okay, well, I think that she spent a little too long on, oh, I've just woken up. So I would maybe just say it once instead of twice. And then I will make maybe something, well, she did mention shower and everything, but even the fact that she woke up that day or today is something to be celebrated. So there's a lot she could have done with that. I've just woken up than she did.
Okay, I'm going to explore this a little further. So the what, in Billy's terms, is that Agnes could have spent a little less time on that she woke up. Why? Why?
Why? Well, no, I think she repeated it twice. I don't know whether it was for emphasis, but because she said, I've not done much because I've just woken up.
But the
And then
point
she
is,
had said it is 6 a.m. before.
when we give feedback, we want to give what, why, and then how to do it
Yeah.
differently. So the what is you label you think that there was too much emphasis and I'd just woken up and whatever. It could have been turned round. It could have been turned round in a way that I've just woken up. I'm still sleepy. I'm still waking up. I'm still sleepy because I'm trying to get my head together. So it's a way that it could have been turned around into something different. But the what is you want to move on with the story and not just get stuck maybe in one position. So the what and the why, because you want to keep the audience attention moving forward. The what, the why, and the how to do it differently is to move on. Is to move on a little bit quicker to keep the audience moving forward. Some people may say, have a different view and say repetition is good because it really helps us understand where she is. So different people may have a different opinion. I'm going to move on now to delivery. So Teresa, you've got your hand up. What commendation would you give for delivery, the what and the why?
Well, excuse me, I'm going to go out a little bit on a limb here and say because it was only 6 o'clock in the morning, because she had only been up for an hour, that gives her, in my opinion, a limited delivery because not much has gone on in that hour. So I would have turned it into the day before that, okay, I've just woken up, it's 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm really excited to be here, but this is what happened to me yesterday. This was the most important or the best thing that happened to me yesterday, because that opens it up for more dialogue. Although I enjoyed what she said, I thought it was very limited. You know, she
Okay.
repeated kind of, I got up, I took a shower, got myself ready. It was like she was searching for something besides the anticipation of being here at this meeting.
Thank you, Teresa. Has anyone else got a commendation for delivery? What do we like specifically on the delivery, the what and why of the delivery? Brett.
I liked Agnes's tone, her voice. There was if I understood it correctly, or at least the way I perceived it, there was a hint of sarcasm there, but it came across very naturally, very humbly that you've asked her a question, but she's only been out for 1 hour, so it is what it is. And to me, there was non-verbal, but it was in her voice. So I call that delivery.
It connected to you. Okay, so it connected and you kept you engaged. Who would like to give a recommendation for delivery? The what, the why, and the how to. Anyone would like to give a recommendation? Someone who hasn't spoken. Someone would like, yes, Atul.
Yeah, I think a little bit of artistic license could be applied here. She could really said I put the kettle on, or brew some coffee, listen to some classical music, or rustle up some breakfast, or something like that. She could have added to the story to make it a little bit more interesting with some more details. Even though they would be mundane, they would be still interesting.
Okay, thank you very much, Atul. And I think with delivery, maybe we could have had a bit of action. All right, I'm ready for my morning cup of tea or something like that to add a bit of interest to the topic. I'm actually going to stop there because my time is up, and I'm going to hand over to the lovely Andrew, who's going to take you through touch on a few more things and add something as well. So over to you, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Let's give a huge round of applause to Lynne. And also to all of you who've participated so far. There's going to be more participation as the workshop continues. So it's great to see you starting to volunteer and to join in and to practice using your evaluation skills. That's what we designed this evening for. It's an evening for you so that you can develop further your skills. So the more you participate, the better it will be. Well, as Lynne says, it's time for me now to deliver my golden nugget on the subject of evaluation for you. The moment has arrived and your speaker is on stage right in front of you. Wow. I'm going to share with you on in-depth watching and listening, evaluation organisation, and I'm also going to touch on delivery as Lynne did too. Lynne and I have complementary ideas actually, and that's why this workshop in particular is very useful, because folks get to compare and have the comparison of our ideas as we go through. Now, if the evaluation is taking place in a regular meeting, you will already have contacted your speaker in advance and you will have asked them if there's anything they would like to focus on. You will also have read the Pathways evaluation sheet, like this one here, for the project that they are undertaking. Really important to do that, and do I please encourage you very much today that these need to be filled in after you've given the evaluation. An evaluation has a verbal component and it has a written component so that the writing underlines what we actually say in our delivery of the evaluation. So don't forget these, please. I know that in some clubs it's become a bit of a habit not to fill these in, but Excalibur Online Global Speakers, we always fill them in. Don't we, committee? Absolutely. What a team. If it's a contest evaluation, you need to note down the name and the title, name of your speaker and the title straight away. It does get announced twice, but make sure that you do that, because that way you can truly focus in on your evaluation. For note-taking, and note-taking is all important in evaluation skills. Well, I'll show you what I use. I use a very simple sheet. I have commendations, recommendations, a little thing for use of language, and for summary. So I have commendations, recommendations, use of language, and summary. It's very basic, but it really serves the purpose, I find, for me when I'm evaluating. So maybe that will be for you. It makes it easier to triage your notes ready for when you have to deliver within the space of 3 minutes. The first minute, I would really encourage you to focus in on your speaker. Don't get sucked into the idea of making lots and lots of notes right from the beginning. Focus for that first minute totally on the speaker, because you're learning your speaker, you're getting to know them. You're getting to know, hopefully, their speech purpose, the idea of the message. And I think it's really important to give them all your attention at first. So focus in on the speaker. The only exception that I do give to that occasionally is if I hear an exceptional use of language at the beginning and I want to note it down because it may be useful later. I've developed the skill, the multitasking skill of actually writing and watching at the same time for use of language. So I think that's, but basically we are really focusing particularly on that first minute on the speaker and getting to know them, getting to know the feel of the speech. That's so important. You're going to gradually note down the strong points because those will serve you for commendations. And you're also going to note down the things that you really maybe think the speaker could do better. So those are going to go into the recommendation sections. Is there something that isn't quite right for you? The feel of the structure, something in the delivery that just doesn't quite ring true for you. What is it? Just note it down as you go, because those will be very important for the recommendations. If it's the contest, you have 5 minutes in a side room to prepare your evaluation. If you're in the club meeting, well, it's more difficult, isn't it? Because you have to make abstraction of what's going on around you and focus in. And quite often there's something else going on, table topics, maybe impromptu speaking. So you need to be able to make abstraction and focus in and do the triage of your notes. here's a way to triage your notes. This is the way I do it, okay? What are the 3 warmest commendations in your list? What are the 3 things that you thought were absolutely fantastic in this speech? Note them down. You've got them noted down, and I actually like to put a tick next to each one. 1, 2, 3. That way, if I've noted 6 fabulous things, I'm only focusing in with 3. Okay? And that's much neater for you in the time that's allotted to you. And then I'm going to look at my recommendations. What would I like the speaker to achieve with this speech, and maybe in their presentation style as well? What are the 2 recommendations that I would draw out from my list, and I put ticks by those? And I look at my list and I think, well, what is the easiest recommendation to action, to take action on first? Because it's very important that we put our speaker and the audience, because an evaluation is for the audience, it's for the whole gathering. It's very important that we make them comfortable in the first few moments of the evaluation and when we deliver that first recommendation, so that they can not only hear but actually feel that they can take action on the information that I'm giving them. So do put your recommendations in order. The easiest one to put into action first, please. Prepare an opening phrase for your evaluation. Now, with this one, you can use that category about use of language, maybe. Because if you can maybe quote a couple of the words of the speaker, it's quite an easy way to set up the evaluation as you start. Quote the words of the speaker, or maybe they've left you with a specific image. Quote that image. And something that it will do for you that really helps is it will stop you having the tendency to tell me the story of the speech all over again. The speaker's done that for me. They've told me the story. I don't need to hear it again. What I need is your comments and your reflections on what's happened. That's how our speaker is going to grow. So yes, do use the images of the speakers that they've given to you, and also some of their words as you're preparing that opening sentence. Please don't forget your summary. Now, the summary is key because you are fixing in the mind of both speaker and audience those points that you've suggested as suggestions for improvement. So make sure, please, do make sure that you deliver that summary. And what do you do after your summary is done? What do you do? Well, you deliver that last commendation that you had, the biggest, juiciest, liveliest commendation that you have, so that the speaker goes away on a high, ready and prepared to take action on those recommendations that you've given. So end up with a nice commendation, make it bright and send them on their way. Maybe you're sending them on to their next project as well. You could make mention of that, where they're going, so that they can feel a sense of direction and impetus in their speaking. Just deliver them that last commendation. I wanted to touch on the question of timing. Now, you can practice evaluations quite easily by going online as well and looking at speeches on YouTube. Make some notes, put your stopwatch on, and practice delivering an evaluation. An evaluation is a different form of speech. We practice our prepared speeches. Let's practice our evaluations too. Why not? Why not use that method to practice your evaluation skills? A word about the recommendations. If you possibly can do it, please get to the first recommendation before the green light. There's a reason for this. The recommendations actually take time to deliver. They're an important and key part of your evaluation. So you need the time. Now, one tip I have for you this evening is that quite often you will see that I use demonstration. I always say a demonstration saves you 50 words. It saves you time in the evaluation. Show me what you would like me to do. If you're commenting on the tone of voice and how it matched the story at that point, then maybe use the words that the speaker was using and display the tone of voice to them. If you're talking about movement, stage movement in some way, show us what you mean by the change of direction or stage movement and how it will affect the story. Always attaching the why, as Lynne said in her briefing this evening, and making sure that the speaker has a tip, a way of doing this. By demonstrating, it's quite a good way of fixing things in our speaker's mind as well. So use demonstration, try to get to recommendations before green light if you can. It's going to save you time, and then you'll have plenty of time for your summary as well. I wanted to touch on what happens after the meeting. You're going to make yourself available to your speaker just to clarify any points that have come up. TMI, Toastmasters International, is a learning experience. Sometimes, unintentionally, we can be a little bit clumsy with our language in the 3 minutes it's time allotted. Sometimes it's quite by accident. We don't quite say things in the way we wanted to. And so it's good to have some time with your speaker just to clarify anything that they need after the meeting. It keeps the communication flowing, which is, after all, the underlying aim of any communication program that we may be involved in. And lastly, I wanted to just touch on the fact that I'm sure we all in this room agree, I know we do because we are a multicultural group in this club, that the language we use should always be kind and inclusive. That is so important. Kind and inclusive language. We're there to support our speakers. We're there to share with the folks who are gathered and who are also learning along in the evaluation time. Let's just be careful that our language is always kind and supportive. And, as we deliver our evaluations, we're helping our speakers, we're helping the gathering, and we're developing as speakers ourselves. The next time you deliver a speech, I bet it will be much better because in the meeting beforehand, or maybe at a contest, you delivered an evaluation. It works on us. Some points for you there then from me this evening. We are going to hear another speech, and something very special will happen after this speech. Lynne and I are going to retire for 5 minutes, and we are both going to prepare an evaluation of the speaker's speech. And you are going to get the chance to contrast and compare our styles and pick up from that the tips that you need, the things that seem the most interesting and different to you that maybe you could integrate into your skills. We'll be integrating more skills in the latter part of the meeting. The speaker, she is somebody very special indeed. I'm delighted that we've got her here this evening at Excalibur Online Global Speakers. She has the most wonderful podcast called Storytelling, which I've followed every month. I believe she issued 25 podcasts last year, which is quite staggering, considering that she does such a lot of work for our district, District 91, because she is the District 91 director. And she is going to tackle the subject of courage, of bravery. What is it that makes bravery? What is it that makes courage? Well, we are going to listen closely now, and we are going to hear from District Director Debbie Williams. The act of being brave. With the act of being brave, Debbie Williams, give her a round of applause.
Oh, can you hear me? Am I unmuted? Yes, I am. Thank you very much for that lovely warm welcome, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Excaliburgers and guests. When people hear the word brave, they usually picture someone dramatic, be it firefighters, soldiers, or people who wake up 5 a.m. in the morning, and yes, I am one of them. But real bravery doesn't usually look heroic, like a superhero mid-action. Most of the time, it looks awkward. It looks scared. It looks like someone standing in the middle of a mess thinking, how did I get here? And how do I get out? Because bravery is not the absence of fear. It is what shows up when fear meets something that matters more. So tonight I want to review a different question, not how do I become brave, but what is powerful enough to move you when you are afraid? We don't wake up brave. Seriously, we do not wake up brave. We wake up tired, stressed. We wake up scrolling on our phones, wondering why we signed up for things we now regret. How many of you sign up for things that when the reality hits you that you have to do something, be it work or something that requires effort, or even to be brave, and you're thinking, why did I do this? Every act of courage has a purpose, be it love, loyalty, as some sort of motivation. And I learned that lesson in a place I did not expect, hanging from a wall. I was running a Spartan race, mud, obstacles, adrenaline, and a very confident version of myself at the starting line. And then I reached a wall, a vertical wall, tall, smooth, and clearly designed for someone who hates people. At first, I climbed like it was a greatest challenge. And then halfway up, I got stuck. And that's when fear showed up. Not that I might fall fear, it was that I might seriously hurt myself fear. I looked down and I saw danger. And what felt like an eternity and not looking very impressive, I wasn't the only one worried. People around me froze. They looked panicked. Some looked like they were mentally preparing to catch me. In that moment, I thought, I don't know how to explain this feeling, being trapped, exposed, or feeling small. I can't really describe it, but I can describe that relief afterwards when I managed to climb this wall, because strangers around me helped me. Lean left, put your foot here, go there. Their voices cut through that panic, and I managed to climb down safely, and I finished the race. And I'm still here telling this story, not because I was brave, but because there was something that mattered more than fear. Finishing that race meant something to me, and it was a promise I had made to myself. Fear didn't disappear, it just stopped being the loudest voice in the room. That's when I realized that bravery is not a personality trait, it's a response to meaning. Every courageous act has a reason. Sometimes it's a love for family, showing up when you're exhausted. Sometimes it's loyalty to friends, speaking up when silence would be easier. And sometimes the bravest form is love for self, leaving, healing. And that sort of courage doesn't get applause, but it's one that changes lives. So I would ask that you think about a time when you have had the courage to do something, not because it was fearful, but because it brought meaning to you. Because bravery is not who you are. It is what happens when love is louder than your fear. And I just want to take a moment just for everyone to reflect. When has there been a time when love or that motivation has taken over that fear so that you could conquer something that was extraordinarily difficult for you? I would encourage each and every one of you to make that motivation greater than your fears. That is how you overcome anything. You don't need a Superman t-shirt or anything else. You just need you, and you just need you to show up. Whether it's love, family, or just showing up for yourself. There's that bravery inside each and every one of us. And I just want to applaud that in everyone right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a fantastic speech. Let's give a big round of applause to Debbie this evening. Lynn and I are going to disappear from your screen. We're going to go and prepare our evaluations now. I think we're both back now. Are we back, Lynn? Right. She's on her way, certainly, if she's not quite yet in the room.
I am. I'm here.
You're there. That's fantastic. Thank you, Lynne. So let's hear from Lynne. Let's hear Lynne's evaluation of Debbie's speech first. Let's give her a round of applause to start off.
I think we're Pamela's. Okay. Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and of course our guest, but most of all our speaker, Debbie. An inspirational speech, bravery, courage. And I absolutely loved the fact, to me it was fairly original with her ideas and her logic, something to make us think, to move from afraid to brave. And that really made me think, because it was something that I could latch onto and think, okay, there's hope for us all. And I also loved the fact about the structure of her speech, because it's from waking up in the morning where we're not quite with it and what we're going to do and commit ourselves to asking us questions, asking the audiences questions, and then moving on to her story and how she moved from afraid to a brave, even though not all the fear went away. And then moving to motivation for all of us, that how we can show up to be brave. A fairly simple structure that we can all follow and understand. A suggestion, though, for Debbie would be, what's the definition of brave? What's the Oxford English Dictionary definition of brave? And then how does she connect to that with her interpretation of it, would be my suggestion. Because then we can follow her thinking behind it and what her interpretation is of it. My second thought and recommendation for Debbie is to do what I'm doing, is to stand. Because, in fact, our regional 10 advisor, Lillian Chaftacola, she really encourages every speaker to stand, especially if you're online. It allows your hands to be seen. Otherwise, you get these flicky fingers, and it can be quite annoying, but it gives you a greater breath because you're standing. It makes you more powerful in your voice, and you can be more expressive with your thing. You can be brave with your expression. But one of the things that I absolutely loved the most was the language, the short sentences that Debbie used. Cut through that panic. And fear is not the loudest in the room. That, for me, was a very powerful message. So in summary, I liked the idea that gave us value to think. The flow, which was easy to understand. But give us the definition of what bravery actually means. And stand up when you speak to add to that gravitas and credibility. But keep the language simple like you did. It makes it so much easier to understand. And it has allowed all of us to think that we can move from afraid to brave.
Thank you, Lynne, for your evaluation. Is it love? Is it loyalty? What is powerful enough to motivate you into being brave? That was the question that Debbie gave us today in her speech. What is powerful enough to motivate you to be brave? She took us to the heart of her topic, the heart of her message, with the use of words of strength. We had love, we had loyalty, strong words, powerful words that we could feel tangibly. I know that I could feel them right down in the pit of my stomach when Debbie was speaking tonight. Such was her sense of communication. So very well done to her. But she also shared something else that's very special with us, and that was her vulnerability, the vulnerability of the story of the wall. And I want to thank her for that, because it was truthful. And we can all relate, I think, to moments of vulnerability. That also was, as it grabbed me just as much as the moments of power and the words of power, the moments of vulnerability. The wall background is an excellent prop. And I want to suggest that we make even more use of it. For instance, I wondered whether Debbie could climb up the wall, actually on camera for us, even if she's looking forward, because it would give her purposeful movement. Occasionally this evening, sometimes there was a little cloudiness on my screen because the gestures were getting a little bit lost, and I did feel that if maybe she used the wall and specific moments in the story to climb and climb over, that would also add to the power and the impact of this speech. I want to have a word about pacing this speech. How do we pace this speech? Make motivation greater than fear. That's an incredibly important sentence in this speech. It merits being slowed down and the words being given greater emphasis, because that's where the power lies. Another one that I picked out particularly was when love is louder than fear. What a fantastic sentence, a message to share with your audience. But the pacing can be a little slower. And at the same time, it's not a question we're talking about love being louder. It's not a question of increasing volume, but increasing the intensity of our delivery, the intensity of our feelings. If we feel the emotion, we communicate it out to our audience through our body language, through our voice, and through our eyes. And that's very important too. My recommendations, therefore, in summary to Debbie today, are to look at the pacing of the speech, underline those key sentences in the message, and just be aware that the delivery needs to maybe slightly slow down at those moments. We also looked at the idea of using the wall as a prop just to help guide movement more precisely. What's the loudest voice in your room, I'm wondering? Well, I hope that with Debbie this evening, whatever that loud voice is, you find the courage to overcome. So there you are, two very different styles of evaluation of the very same speech. It shows you how much freedom you have, and also how different styles can affect, and how we can match maybe some of the tone of our speaker and their delivery. I hope you enjoyed seeing those this evening and that was very useful to you. We are now going to move on to a facilitated discussion. John, our VPE, is going to take questions for Lynne and I from the chat, and we are going to answer your questions. It's another participation moment. So if you have any specific questions to address to us, sometimes we'll both answer the same one, sometimes we'll maybe bounce questions off of each other, but we'll hand over to John to do that.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Right, Toastmasters, so if you want to either send messages in the chat and I will read them out, and either Lynne or Andrew can answer your questions, or perhaps you'd like to just raise your hand and I'll try and keep an eye on everyone to see who's might have raised their hand. But there's quite a few people here, so it might be better if you just put things in the chat. If you don't mind doing that, that's probably the easiest way. But if you do want to raise your hand, I don't mind. I'll keep an eye on that as well. So let's have your questions. You must have lots of them already. Atula's left, unfortunately, but not to worry. Well, I have a question. So I'll start the question session off. So we've had today two quite different, really, perspectives on evaluation from Lynne and Andrew, and there's a lot of information there. So my question is it possible to have kind of some procedure where you can integrate those two approaches to make an even more effective evaluation template than the ones that you've shared with us already?
Lynne?
Yeah. So the question is, can we integrate our two styles?
Yes.
In a sense. So one of the things that I did when I was on my way to being district champion, I would listen to everyone who evaluated any speech. And from that, it would give me ideas. So my evaluations now is not just a product of me, it's a product of many, many people and many, many evaluations. And Andrew is nodding, because it gave me ideas on how to see things and how to interpret things and how to present things. You've probably gathered, I'm a much sort of more specific, very structured person, whereas Andrew in himself is a little bit more creative and a little bit more flowery in how he goes about things, but still very specific. So we have very different styles, but you do learn from each other. I've certainly done voice coaching with Andrew to give a different perspective on the voice, and I look out for it now. So that, to me, that is how you learn, by keeping a black book. I literally had a black book, and I would write down the way different people evaluated different speeches.
Yes, I would come in on that one as well, actually, Lynn, because I've learned a great deal from listening to evaluations in meetings over the years and in contest situations. I think that we learn a little by osmosis, kind of taking in and drawing out the things that seem to us to be particularly relevant. Also, another thing that I tend to do, particularly when I've been in contest situation, is that I literally sit there and evaluate every speech that passes in front of my eyes, whether I'm the evaluator or not. I like to be warmed up in the skill of evaluation, and so I will sit there and I will take evaluation notes. In this particular club, for those of you that are guests, we always have an open feedback time on all of our prepared speeches. So the speakers receive formal evaluation from their evaluator, and we have the open feedback. So it really is a good club for you to practice those skills of capturing the comments. John.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Well, we've got a couple of questions in the chat now. So there's one here from Billy Kisso. I hope I've pronounced that name correctly. Apologies if I haven't. And the question is, how do you ensure that this is relating to when you're doing the conventional table topics evaluation where they're all at the end rather than continuously as we do it at Excalibur? And the question is, how do you ensure that you are within time when evaluating table topics where there are 5 or 6 speakers and yet give each one something tangible to work on? So either of you like to answer that?
Yeah, you have to split your time. I don't know how long you have to do 5 or 6 speakers, right? So split your time. Commendation, recommendation, commendation is all you're going to have time for. You probably need to get the commendations motivating, but keep them sort of short and to the point. And I always try and vary them so you're not giving the same recommendation to everybody. One other way to do it is where you give general feedback versus individual specific feedback. I have seen people do that. If sometimes in the club it's very, very short period of time, what you can do, you can give general feedback and then talk to the others individually as well. I prefer the personal feedback, but it just depends on time.
Yes, I would encourage, I know that sometimes, for instance, if there's one prepared speech missing, the club adds in extra topics. If they're adding extra topics, I would hope that they would give you, as the topics evaluator, a couple of extra minutes so that you can do things without becoming breathless. But I think the skill of knowing where you are in those few minutes. We have the timekeeper. We have Pema timing the first part of this meeting for us. She's absolutely excellent. She keeps us on track. But I think the skill of you internally knowing where you are in those minutes is something that you develop over time, and you use it also when you're delivering speeches. Of course, if you're doing 5 to 7, you kind of get the feel of where you are timing wise. I would agree with Lynn that you need to keep the comments nice and short, your commendation and your recommendation with the why and how added on.
Thank you very much, Andrew. There's an earlier question here from someone called Prince GD Luxembourg. I'm not quite sure who that is, but I think that person is still here.
Hi,
so
yeah, he's the one that's got the flag. Hello, Prince.
Okay, good.
Hi,
That's
Prince.
good. Well, this is one specifically for you, Lynn.
Me, yeah.
So have you seen it in the chat already?
Yes, I have. It was about, I mentioned that some things are more subjective than others, and Prince came back to me and said it's all subjective, which is a fair point. But but I'm saying I'm going with what's on the criteria. But I think some things are more subjective than others. So the purpose of the speech is probably easier to identify. It can be a little bit subjective, but it is a bit easier. It's a humorous speech, an entertaining speech, and an informative speech. But the value of a speech or an effectiveness on you is very subjective. So I agree there is subjectivity to most of the criteria. We've all seen that in judging, but I do think some points or some areas are more subjective than others. Again, with language, it may be subjective what you like and what you don't like, but we all heard the words. So you can make your own judgment on that, but you're right. There are some things that are more subjective, and overall it can be subjective because, you sometimes come out of contests and think, how do they win? Or how do they not win, sort of thing. So it is a fair point. There is subjectivity to the judging. That's why we want people to have done at least 6 speeches to be able to judge.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Andrew, do you have anything to add on that point at all?
Yes, there's a level of subjectivity in the evaluation, and we know that the recommendations are suggestions that our speaker either adopts or they don't. But I do feel, for instance, if you rely, for instance, on the marking sheet that our judges use in contests, that the categories, if you use the categories well, they do help to level out some of that subjectivity, I feel. So it's worth every speaker's while, even if you're not entering contests, just downloading the judge's ballot and taking a look at it from time to time, and also take a look when you're preparing your speech as well, and think, if I was doing this in a contest, how would I mark myself? That's another way of learning. Do you remember Christian at the beginning gave us his speech about the mirror? Maybe we can get our own mirror and reflect it back to us too.
Thank you, Andrew. There's a point here from Beverly about whether you should stand or sit for an online speech delivery. Beverly's making the point that in this format, she thinks that you lose more than you gain by standing because you lose facial expressions.
I will come into that one. And again, it's a subjective viewpoint. But if you were in a room and you've got, some clubs have 60, 70 people, they're not going to get as close to that facial expression, right? But with standing, if you don't stand, you get this. We get a lot of this. A lot of people do it. We get these flicking fingers, which is a real bugbear of mine. But when you're standing, you can actually be freer with your hands and your body language. And your whole, there's more of your body that is seen, and also because you are upright, there is a temptation sometimes to sink into a chair when you're speaking, and your voice isn't as strong. And Andrew, I'm sure, will add to that, as he is all about the voice. Whereas if you're upright and speaking and standing, you are going to have a stronger breath.
Okay, thanks very much. Andrew, any comments on that one?
I agree with Lynne. I think, I've delivered evaluations sitting down quite often in online meetings. I think you can deliver with impact sitting down. I think that sometimes, particularly if you want to do a particularly demonstrative evaluation, then it really is a good idea to stand up. I think you have both options. I think you, as the evaluator, have to make your decision as to how you're going to present it in this context. I think both ways are viable, but maybe it depends on the content and type of speech it's been as well.
Thank you very much,
and I was referencing the speaker because I thought there was opportunity for Debbie to climb the wall sitting is harder than if you're standing. So that was my thought.
Okay, thanks very much to you both there. An interesting one here from Pallavi, and this is a question actually that I've often had when trying to evaluate very good speakers. And Pallavi's question is, how does one evaluate an exceptional or veteran speaker without coming across as nitpicking, because there isn't much one can recommend?
It's always how someone can do something that little bit better, right? Could they do a longer pause? Could they adjust their tone? Just that fraction, the speed of their voice, that they do that more specific gesture. It's little things. It's not nitpicking. And people often say that it's only a small point. But actually, when you get to a certain level of experience, it's those little things that will separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. Andrew?
I think one of the most important things for me is that you reflect back to the speaker, whatever their level of experience, how the speech made you feel. It's the question of connection. How did you feel? Because you could be the most experienced speaker on the planet. You could have won every contest that you've ever entered. But you could be delivering a speech where maybe part of the speech you've got a good connection, and maybe for another part of the speech the connection's less strong for some reason. Also, there are things that happen in the moment. A speech is a moment in time, and sometimes you may be an extremely skilled speaker, you may be doing very well. Other times maybe there's something that just slightly distracts the concentration for the audience. There's usually something there. Like Lynne, I don't think it's nitpicking to pick up on the smaller points. I think it's actually honing and perfecting. That's what I would say.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I noticed that we're on red, so timer, have we got any time left, or do we need to finish now?
Well, I think Prince has had his hand up.
Yes, he does have it, but we want to keep the time, so we'll have that final one from Prince then, if he'd like to speak up.
Well, in my experience, and well, it's quite modest for what it's worth, but I have always been told two things when evaluating. There is no small thing. It's always important when you are giving a speech. The actions, the words, the content, what you say, how you say it, everything matters. And it matters that much more when you are, well, inexperienced. I wouldn't say veteran, makes you feel old, but experienced Toastmaster. The other thing that I had, if you do not know where to start, ask yourself those 5 questions: why, what, when, where, and, well, for good reason, how. And pick out those questions which really are relevant to the speech, not the speaker. You're not evaluating the person, you're evaluating the rendition on that given day. You do not evaluate the speaker, you evaluate the speech performance as such. So that is my Tuppeny.
Thank you very much. Do we need to go into the breakout rooms?
Yes. Come to me.
Right, let's do that then.
Okay, folks, so what happens now? Thank you very much, John, for animating that discussion for us. What happens now is that we are going to divide into 2 groups. One of you will be my group and one of you will be Lynne's group. We have 2 speakers who are going to deliver a 5-minute speech in each breakout room. And I want you to prepare some evaluation comments for those speakers. And we're going to hear some of your evaluation comments in those breakout rooms. We're going for 20 minutes and I think we're going to be sent over now.